All right, we're being double recorded, so just, that way we have all of our bases covered. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your summer and out of your day to join us for our session, Navigating the Path Less Taken, Adult Diploma Tips and Tricks. We can introduce ourselves. I am Stephanie Summers, and I am the Adult Diploma Coordinator for Minneapolis Adult Education. And I am being joined by my wonderful colleague, Denise.
Hi, my name is Denise Goldman. I use she, her pronouns. I am the site director for Project for Pride in Living's Re-Engagement Center, which includes our adult diploma program. It's called Diploma Connect.
All right. So we will go over our objectives. As everyone knows, this is only a 45-minute session, and we do have quite a lot of content we'd like to get to. At the same time, we recognize there might be questions. We want you to know that if we can't address your question during the session, we will be keeping an eye on the chat. We will be saving the chat, and we'll be happy to get back to you with any questions we can't answer in our 45 minutes. Additionally, Dr. Brandy Logan from the Department of Ed is joining us, and she will also be keeping a close eye on those questions, and we will do our very best to respond. So just please keep that in mind as we try to get through what we have planned for you. What we're hoping to cover today is we're hoping you'll leave with a better understanding of the adult diploma, its purpose, and the learners that it serves. We're going to identify some key factors that make a strong adult diploma portfolio. We'll address a few of the most common portfolio mistakes, and then we'll share a few resources. And something Denise and I did not mention when we introduced ourselves is our program in Minneapolis has been doing the adult diploma since about 2020. So we started right around COVID. And Denise's program is just a little bit newer.
Yeah, we started in 2022. And if you have questions and things, I also thought it was important to know that Stephanie's program is probably more traditional within Minneapolis Public Schools. My program is more individualized, so everybody is in their own path and mostly online with drop-in hours. So it's a really different model, which I think is interesting that we can do that.
That's a great point. All right, so we're going to start with a little poll here, I think.
Yeah, so Christine, are you able to do that for us? If not, we can just put it into the chat as well. So we're trying to figure out, obviously, since the adult, since the adult diploma program is new, which we'll get into those exact dates later, but we're just wondering who's currently involved with it. So are you here because you're already doing it, or are you just thinking about it or wanted to learn more information? If you are part of it, have you submitted any portfolios yet? And have you gone through the Adult Diploma 101 training? If you don't know what that is, you probably haven't done it, but it's a 2-day training. So yeah, so if we could get those answered, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is it looks like so far the majority of our respondents are involved with the adult diploma. At the same time, we have slightly more people who have not submitted a student portfolio than those who have. And there's quite a few people who have not completed the Adult Diploma 101 training. I will say, I know when our program got started, it was a good probably 6 months, I think, before we actually submitted a portfolio. And even then, our first portfolio was one that had been started at a different program, and we just sort of helped the student finish up. So yeah, I'm seeing so far we've got 61% say yes, they have been involved, or they are involved with the adult diploma. 51% say they've submitted at least one portfolio. So just about half and half for that one. 61% say they have not completed the Adult Diploma 101 training. Okay, so I want to be clear, we are not trying to replace or duplicate Adult Diploma 101. Denise and I are here today just to present our own insights and sort of lessons that we've learned as two educators who have worked to get a program going within our adult diploma program going for our students. All right, so we will, thanks for the poll, thanks for that information, and we'll get started here. So, the adult diploma is a high school equivalency completion option. It is issued by the Minnesota Department of Ed, and it can be used in all the same ways as what we're calling a regular high school credential. So just like we tell our students you can use your GED or HiSET to enter into higher ed or for employment or to join the military, the diploma can be used in those same ways. So it's just another option to earn a credential.
Okay. Yeah. So we get the question a lot. What's the difference? Why would somebody do a GED instead of a GED instead of the adult diploma, or an adult diploma instead of the GED? So this is a competency-based approach, so it's not test-based, which is really the huge difference for most of my students, at least. The way that those competency-based completion options work are you can take different pieces that the student completes. So you can take old high school transcripts and bring those credits over. You can bring GED test scores over. So say somebody passes one of the tests, that can count. And then ABE coursework. So those are the three main areas that are used for completion options. There's no time limit. So you can continue on for as many years as you need, months, years, and tasks can be differentiated. Also, students are allowed to get feedback and make corrections. So it's not quite as high stakes as a test-based program might feel. And so these are some things that the students have shared with me. So this is just my program, personal, that they don't want to start over with GED testing. So as you all know, if you're working with students working toward their diplomas, many of them have been in high school for 7 years, and they don't want to just throw all that away. It gets very frustrating. So they don't have to start over with GED tests. Sometimes they feel like there's a stigma around it for themselves, that they're settling for a GED. Sometimes, like I was just saying, they spent a lot of time in high school. They want that to count. Obvious test anxiety and trauma is always an issue when it comes to the GED. And then we also have the very common, they've passed three GED tests and cannot get through math. And so with this type of program, we can work with them to do courses in math and then use their GED test for the other three. There are some additional requirements too, but just kind of a basic there with the testing requirements.
All right, and we said we'd give you some numbers. So I wanted to say, since the adult diploma was written into state statute, which was in 2014, and the first diploma was issued in 2015, there have been 1,200 adult diplomas issued by the state. So we're at 1,200 right now. So this is an option that is growing in popularity. And what I'm seeing, Denise, is a little, okay.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
something happened and here we go. I'm sorry, I'm coming right back.
All right, no problem. You know what? I can just keep talking. So we're going to talk about why would a program invest in this option? Because it does take a lot of work. So here are the numbers. Thank you, Denise, that I just talked about. That's just for a little background information. And then
sorry, they're never going to let me do this again.
No, I'm hoping you do it again tomorrow. Okay.
There we go.
So there are some good reasons why a program might want to invest the time to do an adult diploma. And it has to do with a few important areas. One is it does provide a path forward, as Denise mentioned, for students who might have become sort of stuck I know we all work with students who have been in our programs for many years. They maybe have passed some GED tests, maybe they have not, but they're very faithful student participants, and this gives them a way to move forward towards earning that goal so that they feel like they want to persist. We also believe that the adult diploma is a way of putting equity in action. And so what I mean by that is it helps us to be able to provide a completion credential to more students than we might otherwise be able to just using those standardized tests. There's also a portability factor with the adult diploma. So the adult diploma allows us to enter student work at what we call evidence into SID, and then students can take that work with them when they move to other programs, or if they stop out and come back. So it's a way that we can continue to honor the work that students are doing and give them a mechanism for moving around maybe a little more easily than they might otherwise be able to. And then any program that completes at least one domain with a student and enters that domain for review will share in the MSG, the measurable skills gain, when that student completes their diploma. And that's as long as the student has had at least 12 hours with both programs. So those are some reasons we think that a program might want to invest in the work it takes to get diploma up and running. All right, we will talk about some important vocabulary. So for the adult diploma, we've got some key terms here. A domain, there are 5 domains for the diploma. These are 4 of these are the same as for the GED. We've got ELA, of course, the GED calls that RLA, reasoning through language arts. Here it's English language arts. We've got math, science, and social studies. Then we have a 5th domain, employability and career skills, which is very closely tied to ACES TIF and North Star digital literacy. So it's a way to bring in those other components of our Minnesota ABE content standards. Within each domain, there are different areas. So each domain has 4 areas. So for math, that's number sense, algebra, geometry, data, and statistics. Okay. Then we have a competency. So these are the specific skills that a student needs to master and show evidence of in different areas. So for science and social studies, these are based on the Minnesota K-12 standards. For ELA and math, these are from the CCRS. A competency completion option is how a student can show competency in each area. And as Denise mentioned, the most common, I think, are high school credits, ABE coursework, and then GED test scores. There are a number of other options, but they are less common. And then another important distinction is the idea of a credit versus a course. So for when you're analyzing a transcript for science and social studies, we're looking for individual courses in those areas to meet the completion. Yes, the slides should already be in our folder. They are in a PDF format, so they should be available for you to download from the conference folder. Okay, and then some different domains like ELA and math, they require a full year. And so that's where we get into how many credits versus individual courses. Yes, our slides are available in the conference folder for people to download. So they are there for you. All right.
Okay, so just a little bit about how it works. So briefly, everything is managed through the SID site that you're all already familiar with. So you'll notice that there is a tab at the very top there on each student's page that says adult diploma. So you simply click that and move into where you will upload different portfolios. Do you want to take that, Stephanie, or I can keep going?
Would you mind, Denise? I am
Sure,
answering some questions in the chat. Okay, thank you.
Definitely. So as Stephanie mentioned, there are 5 different domains. And so you'll see those on the right side. So each domain, ELA, math, science, social studies, and employability have 4 different areas that you will upload. So as you can see, there are drop-down menus where you will put in how the person is completing that particular area. So it's hard to see these, I know, but you can zoom in when you have the PDF in front of you. High school credits might be one option. Adult education is another option. And then you upload, so you choose that, and then you upload a PDF file of the student's work. And we'll get more into some of those uploads as we keep going. Oh, one more thing. You'll also notice that MDE is the one that approves or returns a student's work. So unlike high school, MDE is issuing the actual diploma, not a school district. So everything is uploaded to the state, and the state approves it or denies it. If they return it, you do have the option to revise it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well.
Denise, can I add one extra excerpt
Yes,
to that
please.
comment? Is yes, MDE, we approve it, but then it goes back to the program for printing, as well as a student wanting to get that document either printed or used to move forward into post-secondary enrollment. So we do not issue those like we issue the GED or high set. So just to be clear.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So the adult diploma has the state of Minnesota on it as who is not issued, but who created the diploma. And then you'll see when the person does have a diploma on the screen, on the same screen, you click on adult diploma, and then there's a really simple download of both their transcript that shows how they showed competency, as well as the diploma itself, which we typically then print out.
All right, so the next section here, we're going to run through some tips that we have come up with to review transcripts, package evidence, and support portfolios, or excuse me, submit. And we're going to start by Denise looking a little bit at an example of a transcript.
Yeah, so on the left side here, you'll see a typical transcript. This one happens to be from Minneapolis Public Schools. And what I like to do is color code it. It's helpful for me to be able to explain to a student exactly which credits are able to transfer over. So as we've said many times, there are the 5 domains. You'll notice there are not electives in there. So the electives don't transfer over. And I think it's nice to be able to show a student that, yeah, you did this work and that was for a different diploma. This diploma, this is what we're taking. And then we fill out, once I've reviewed the transcript, then I fill out this planning sheet with a student or for a student, and then we review it. And my way of doing it is I just gray out everything that is already finished. And then the things that they will need to do, I put in yellow. We talk about those things. So you'll notice that there are lots of ways on this particular one that I just made up. There are lots of ways, though, to fulfill these requirements. So somebody, this person, and part of this is from a real person, but this person took their ACT math test in 11th grade and scored high enough for it to count for all of their math credits, which is just an easier way to upload than showing all of the classes that they took. Versus science, they took all of the classes needed. And so I will be also uploading each of those transcripts to the area, so that, or to the domain, so that the state and the reviewers can see how they are fulfilling those. Some of our transcript advice that we came up with together, that we have personally made mistakes on, and so we're passing along to you, so maybe you won't make the same mistakes, because it can be very complicated reading a transcript. So first, as Stephanie mentioned earlier, counting years versus credits is really important. Math and English require years in order to be transferred over. So if you are counting just credits, as you know, some schools have 3 credits in 1 year. Some schools are on a semester base, they have 2 credits. Some just have 1 credit 1 year. So it's really important to know each particular district, and you might need to just reach out to the district and ask them that question. I keep a list of all the districts, and once I find that out one time, that way I don't have to keep asking them. It's also really important to have course descriptions for any of those courses that are generalized. So often you'll see Math 912 or science, and just science, or just social studies. And so it's really important to have those course descriptions, or they typically will not count. They need to know if science is biology or chemistry, so for it to count for either physical science or life science. If course names don't match, again, best to just reach out to the district. They are the ones who can let you know what each course would count for. Request additional transcripts from schools. So lots of times you will see science listed on the latest transcript, and if you reach out to the previous school, they might have more information on their transcript. And then again, the color coding seems to work really well, and then the transcript review makes it easy to review. And we'll show you an example of a transcript review that would be uploaded. The one that I showed a minute ago is the one that I personally use with students.
All right, so as Denise already mentioned, there are a few, there's always little things that come up when you're doing this work. So we just wanted to show some examples. How do you go about verifying the number of credits? So oftentimes this involves reaching out to a registrar or a secretary or a guidance counselor at a school, asking them if they can verify how many credits are equivalent to one full year of instruction. And that is how I usually word it. Would anyone be able to tell me how many credits are equivalent to one full year of instruction? And then I also often have to ask about which which graduation area credits count for. So do these credits count for ELA? Do these credits count for math? Additionally, we send emails asking for course descriptions. So this is just kind of an example of some of the extra work that we often need to do in order to get everything set for a transcript. And then on the next slide, we'll see a little bit more.
Stephanie, with just one quick add on this, what I've noticed is that some districts have changed their credit to year ratio over time. And so as you start working with older students, it gets much more complicated because they might have a transcript. The transcript doesn't get changed when the school district changes over often, not always. So it's really important to know if something is looking a little bit funky on their transcript, it might be because the credits did change. And again, you have to reach out to them for that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know in Minneapolis, if you go back about 10 years or so, three credits were a full year. Then they simplified that and made one credit 1 year. But on older transcripts, we do have to do those conversions. So that's a great point. All right. So these are.
Did I? Oh,
I think we want.
Sorry,
Yep,
my
we go.
things are in the wrong order on my end. Sorry, go ahead.
We are doing great. All right, so these are some course descriptions here. So just little examples. Does American Democracy and Econ count as a government course? Does biological chemistry count as physical science rather than life science? So whenever you see a course name that you think could meet an area like personal finance, for example, that could be a good substitute for econ. But what I think the state and reviewers might be looking for more specifically, if you can provide that course description or a syllabus, that's really helpful. And it just kind of speeds up the process a little bit. If you do that with your initial submission, then you won't have to resubmit evidence down the road. And I think that's what we're always looking for. Right. And people are talking about whether it's a trimester or quarter or semester system. So those are good questions in the chat. Okay.
Okay. With packaging your evidence, I think that this has been touched on a little bit in the chat. I'm barely looking at that because I'm having such a hard time with the slides anyway. So I'm not looking at that as much as Stephanie, but I think that this has been talked about a little bit. It is best to put as much information as you have. So it's much easier for a reviewer to decide they don't need that information than for them to say, I don't have enough information. They have to send it back to you. You have to get more information or work with the student to get more information. So some of these things seem very small, but less is not more in this situation. So give the reviewers as much evidence as you have. Oh, Stephanie, you're muted.
Yep, I was muted. I'm sorry. It's to drown out my tippy typing when I'm responding in the chat. So, and again, I know someone asked this in the chat. We are happy to share any of our templates or forms. We're just asking people to kind of reach out to us directly, rather than just sharing that. Just our slides are available, but if you'd like a template or one of these checklists, please just reach out. We're very happy to share. So I will say these checklists were developed after getting some questions on some of our submissions. So we wanted to be able to show very clearly how some of the experiences that students were having, how they related to the skills, I think especially for developing a future pathway and navigating systems. So one thing we've got now is just a checklist. And so when a student is completing a process for navigating systems, for example, this student completed the naturalization process, then we just have a list of the different competencies in that area, and we annotate little notes about how the student met those competencies. So this student attended classes, they studied lessons, they completed the N400 form. And we use this to show a more complete picture of how those different competencies were met. And then I know Denise has a really great checklist that she uses as well. Do you want to talk about yours for a minute, Denise?
Sure. So the one on the right, we documented how a person navigated the system of renting an apartment. And so we have this form. There's more to it. I just kind of cut it off because it was so tiny. But what we've done is we have put the different standards that Stephanie's got on the left over to the right and combine them into different things and ask the student to rate themselves. We also use this form with supervisors at work and ask the supervisor to rate how the student navigates that system. So we've used lots of different systems, things like getting their driver's license, renting an apartment, probation is one that we've used a lot, where the supervisor fills that out, the PO fills that out. And then Stephanie's got some examples here of other things that you can include along with the narrative.
Yeah, so I have found as a person doing this work that sometimes this employability and career skills domain is a little, I feel like the more academic domains, it's a little more cut and dry. Of course, it's got its own challenges, but most of the evidence for this domain is going to come from a student's life experience, I believe. And so you just want to make sure that when you're providing evidence that you identify the skills that are being demonstrated. You provide evidence that the goal or objective was reached. So not just a checklist where the student says, yes, I met this skill, yes, I met this skill, but is there a way to verify that? And then a reflection piece that shows that the student has some self-awareness or shows evidence of growth. You know, something like, I didn't used to know that much about my future career options. Then I went through this course and now I feel this way about it. I'm on a clearer path, or I see a different future for myself. So I just wanted to show a couple of examples. As Denise mentioned, getting a driver's license is very common. And so a student just wrote up some steps, but then we also did a scan of the student's license to show that they obtained it. Additionally, on the right, a student applied for and successfully navigated the system to get to get on MNsure for herself and her family. And so she wrote up the steps, and then we scanned a copy of her insurance cards to show that she had navigated that system successfully. So I think it's important to provide both the student reflection or explanation of steps, as well as some evidence or proof that this system was successfully navigated. And then on the next slide, we are big believers in creating documents and then reusing them so that you've got some sort of templates. So the document on the left is a document we use in Minneapolis to help students see some different options that they could choose for showing mastery within developing a future pathway. So they could take a class or meet with a counselor from the Career Force Center. They could take one of the online career pathway classes available through the state or research those options. They can use something like MCIS, for example, to gain skills. They can do a research project where they identify a career of interest, research it, and write a paper. So the document on the left is mostly for students, explaining the different options in this area. The document on the right is then what I submit with the portfolio when you are using personal life experience as the completion, experiential learning for your completion option. It's important to explain and sort of lay out what that project looks like. And so the document on the left shows what goes in the portfolio. It shows which skills the student is meeting, and then it shows the different steps in the project, as well as the approximate timeline for completing the project. So these are documents that I have created, and then I use them again and again in different portfolios and with different learners. Okay. And then speaking of reusing work and sort of that idea of working harder, or excuse me, working smarter, not harder. We often reuse work in a portfolio. So here I'm showing how a student, she researched becoming a nurse. That was her essay. So her writing sample, which counted for writing and language, was she researched the steps she would need to take and gathered information about entering the field of nursing in Minnesota. So you can see sort of the bottom screenshot where it says strong transition, nice signal word. Those were some of the annotations that I added to her writing sample. When that writing sample was being used for developing a future pathway, then my annotations were related to those specific skills and showing where they were demonstrated or talked about in the student's writing sample. And then the student parlayed the research that she had done into her oral presentation, and she developed a very nice slide deck and presentation about becoming a nurse. So part of this is about reusing student evidence or sort of repackaging it to meet different criteria. And additionally, I think these annotations, which are actually something I first saw Denise doing, are really great ways to very clearly point out how the student is meeting these competencies. So I am showing where I, as the person submitting a portfolio, think these competencies are coming through in the student work. All right. So
okay, so our last section here, and I'm trying to be conscious of time, so it's such a short session. I'm even wondering if, because people have the slides, we'll go really fast with the dot your I's and cross your T's. There's a lot of questions in the chat about what curriculum has been vetted, or which forms can they use. So I just want to be really clear, and Brandy can weigh in on this as well at the end perhaps, but just to be really clear, these are just examples of what Stephanie and I use. So we created them all. In terms of curriculum, I have created with my team all of the curriculum that we use. If it is not curriculum that we have developed for our classes based on standards, and then you have to show all of that, then it's things that have already been posted like IXL or Edmentum, things that the state has already approved. So just an FYI on that. We're happy to share things, but they are not necessarily, they're not from the state. There are things that are from the state that we can talk about, but these are our examples. So common mistakes are usually really small, but they can cause very long delays. One of the most common is selecting the wrong completion option. So sometimes you might mark that it was a high school credit course, but it wasn't. It was a class that they did with you. So just be really careful on these drop-down menus. Another small thing but big thing is to do these transcript review cover sheets. So whatever format you make it in, right? Mine is just an Excel document. So whatever format you decide to make it in, just so long as you have everything documented very specifically. So again, I'm way into color coding, obviously, but this blue and yellow one, those are two different schools and they have two different ratios of credit to year. So just as long as you are putting everything in there as clearly as possible. This is a state sheet that was given to me when we first started. So this is an MDE cover sheet that I think it's MDE, so I apologize if it's not, but this is what I was given. And so it's very clear of which standards are you covering and which level E, right? So for every final task, you need a level E shown, and it needs to cover all of the level E. So you'll see in this explanation here for teacher explanation of language standards alignment, uses parallel structure, and shows significant evidence of varying sentence structures, phrases, and clauses. So I have to hit both of those, not just one. And then I mark the examples in the essay with blue highlighter. That way the reviewer can look directly for those standards.
And I have to say, Denise, that is one of the best ways to submit evidence is when you make it easier for the reviewer to see where that level E is, especially when it's math questions. And of course, like you mentioned with RLA, it makes it that much streamlined for the reviewer.
Thanks, Brandy.
All right, and so we just wanted to sort of point out that we are all human and the adult diploma is not an exact science. Sometimes evidence that might have passed in previous portfolios will not pass again. Sometimes the different eyes on a portfolio might have different interpretations of a standard or how a standard can be met. And this can be frustrating, but we recommend that you try again, you take a different approach. And so this is an example of a recent portfolio that I submitted where some student evidence was not passed. The first part, it was not passed because the level E standard was not specifically listed on the cover sheet. And then there was a question about whether or not the standard I had identified for speaking and listening, whether or not the work really met that standard. So the evidence was not passed. So I took a deep breath and I redid my cover sheet where I explicitly listed the level E standard. And then I went ahead and showed in the reading evidence which of the questions from our text-dependent question set I thought met the different pieces of that standard. And so with that additional documentation, the evidence was passed. And so I think our goal is always to serve our students and to help them get these credentials. And so even though sometimes it can feel a little frustrating, we need to just remember that we're doing this work for our learners and that we're always just trying to do it a little bit better or a little bit more clearly. And so that's the name of the game. Another thing to point out is that the competency completion document is subject to change. It was recently updated. And so the most current version is from July. of this year. And so just make sure that you are keeping up with any changes. So for example, one change I was really happy got approved is for North Star Digital Literacy, students are now able to use either Google Docs or Microsoft Word to meet that completion option. So that's one example of a change that has taken place.
Okay, and then where you can find resources. So on the Atlas website, there is an icon there for Adult Diploma /HSE. There are lots of resources in there. The Adult Diploma 101 is something that's required for your site to offer the Adult Diploma program. So that has a lot of resources. Within Atlas, there are even some Adult Diploma capstone tasks. So like I mentioned earlier, in order to pass one of the areas, you need a final task that shows level E competency in one standard. So there are different tasks in there that are available for your use. So yeah, and I think thank you, Marty. The link is in the chat there. So
And I will say,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I saw someone asked earlier if there had been any new sample tasks added, I think, to the Atlas library. So there are 13. And I don't think any of those have been particularly added like very, very recently. So that's just something to keep in mind. Oh, and then Christine says she has a few more that are going to be added this fall. And what was the password to access the docs in Atlas? I will let someone else answer that one. Does anyone have questions for us? We just have a couple minutes left. Again, you are very welcome to reach out and request any of these documents, and I will add the slides to Sketch. Sorry about that. I'm used to a different system. But we would have time for 1 or 2 questions if there are any. Okay, so we see the password is MN Diploma. The recording, okay, where will the recordings be, Christine? Our emails are on our last slide, so let's go to that.
The recordings will be, that's a really great question, actually, because Atlas isn't behind Summer Institute. So I believe I'm going to have to find that out. Normally we post on the MN YouTube channel, the MN ABE YouTube channel, but I would have to check because this is not an Atlas run event. Sorry.
Okay.
There's one question here that's, I think, important. So Laura, with the cover sheet, you don't need to put a cover sheet in for the GED, but you do need to put in a printout of their GED scores from the GED website. So that documentation has to be there. With high school transcripts, it's one cover sheet, and with ABE instruction, it's a different cover sheet. So yes, there's always cover sheets. And if you just think of it as, or documentation of some kind, anything you're putting in there is really just to help the reviewer see what you're putting in, where to find it, that kind of thing. So there's the recording. Thanks, Lindsay.
All right. Yes, high set scores do count, I believe. And
yes,
I think
if you look,
Yes, they do.
Yes, if you look on the brand new updated completion competency options, high set scores were added last year, correct?
All right, well, thank you all for being with us today, and please do reach out if you'd like any more information. We know this was a quick overview, but we appreciate your time, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie and Denise. And yes, I really encourage you to look closely at those slides. There's so much great information, and I learned a few things myself today about diplomas. So as a reminder, the next session starts at 11 a.m. I will be closing this session out. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day at the conference.
Thanks, Stephanie and Denise.
Thanks.